Eventually heavy lifting. The reason I wanted to do this program and in the cello series is when you've listened to some of the tools that I've shared with you, there are a lot of tools that are about doing incremental things or doing tiny things or doing things at the small level so that you can just get over the hump of your own motivation. But I want to share with you that eventually we all need to do the heavy lifting. So this is an example of heavy lifting with cello, and then I'll sit closer to you and explain exactly why I'm describing this. Okay, so this is a piece called Allegretto. It is in Suzuki Book 1. It's piece 11. And Allegretto, again, as usual, I play just a little bit here. Allegretto starts with and that is much slower than it should be. Truly, that's much slower than it should be. And it's not as precise as it should be. And that's fine. I'm working on the piece. But I just want to give you an example as opposed to, so the previous piece, which I played a few times ago, a few times here, it doesn't feel so heavy anymore. It feels like fun. I'll just do a couple of notes of the previous one. It's called Long, Long Ago. So I love that piece, and I find it so melodic. Oh, I'm sorry that the banner is over the comments, is over the eventually heavy lifting. So what I'm trying to say is it's actually effortful to do even the tiniest bit of like, see, even that was the wrong, it was 2 strings instead of 1. So I need to repeat that again and again and again to get that to sound great for you and for me, because the biggest reason I'm learning cello is I love the sound. I love the sound. So you may say, Senia, okay, fine. We know about heavy lifting. We know heavy lifting is important. Why are you sharing this with us now? Why are you saying, hey, even though you may know that heavy lifting is important, it's still really important. Okay, so this is why I'm talking to you about it. You have heard me talk about versus incremental steps. In fact, if I were to give people who are writing a book or engaging in a long project or working on getting promoted or something that's not outside the regular day-to-day what's on your calendar, I would say, please choose incremental steps. Incremental steps in starting an exercise habit, in everything. So you see my inclination and the things that I really have found, both myself and as an organization, as Silicon Valley Change, that we found work are things like incremental steps. But now, contrary to that, I'm saying, hey, eventually you're just going to have to do the heavy lifting. You're just going to have to do the hard work, the effortful, the put the time in. And there's nothing wrong with this, but I'm just giving it to you in contrast to incremental steps and in contrast to tiny habits, which you've heard me talk about many, many times. BJ Fogg is a researcher at Stanford, and he has this phenomenal idea in 2 super TED Talks on tiny habits, with the idea being that if you want to start doing push-ups, start with 1 push-up. If you want to floss your teeth and you haven't before, start with flossing 1 tooth. It sounds ludicrous. I know it sounds ludicrous. It did to me when I first heard about it. But if you start with something small, you're more likely to keep that going, and that habit develops, and then it's easier to add another push-up or another tooth. So as opposed to that, sometimes, again, the point of today's brief content is eventually you're going to have to get to heavy lifting. If flossing is important, eventually you're going to have to get incrementally there. And then one that I don't think I've talked about as much, but I don't know if you're as familiar with. There's this idea of minimal goals. I coach VPs, senior VPs, and at the C-suite of large companies. And I will tell you that these people are very ambitious. They are ambitious in their career. They're ambitious in their life. And when I ask, hey, how are you doing on exercise? What would you like to make incremental forward movement on? They will say, oh, okay, no problem. I'll go running 5 days a week for 30 minutes. I say, hold on. Did you run for 5 days a week for 30 minutes each day last week? The answer is usually no. So then I say, all right, you're setting a maximal goal, something that you want to achieve and you want to surpass, but you also have a chance of not making. Let's set a minimal goal. A minimal goal can be something like 10 push-ups and 50 crunches, for example. And when people set a minimal goal, first of all, they hit it every time. They hit it. They can hit that. Let let's set 5 push-ups and 5 crunches. It doesn't matter what the minimal goal is, but if you're doing that consistently, and then if you use Peter Gallwitzer research on setting an if-then, that you do this every time, let's say before your shower in the morning, or at some specific, between meeting A and meeting B, but you know when it is, now you're really creating a habit. So you can see I have a huge habit inclination, a habit preference in terms of how we can make behavior change. And the reason I called my company Silicon Valley Change is because I super care about behavior change. So given all that, I just want to come back to, we've talked about how I've frequently talked about incremental steps, frequently talked about tiny habits, the smallest thing you could do, like 1 push-up, and talked about, hey, let's come down from something that you might meet to something that you are sure to meet. So actually minimal goals is in a sense similar to tiny habits. It's just really about doing something that's consistent that you can meet. They're pretty similar. But now, today, I am coming to you to say, eventually heavy lifting. The heavy lifting itself may be a small thing. So for me, for example, it's repeating the same things on the cello again and again. It's just repeating that and repeating that, which is, it doesn't even feel incremental, truly. It feels like I'm doing the same thing, but I'm trying to make it sound good, and I'm working on making it the exact rhythm and precise. So in a sense, truthfully, in a sense, I and you were kind of using incremental steps and a little bit tiny habits and a little bit minimal goals. But I'm here today to say, eventually, we're all going to have to do that heavy lifting and just say, this is important, I want this, and I'm going to go after it in this methodical, intense, concentrated, effortful, happily effortful way. Thanks for joining us. Delightful to be with you today. See you tomorrow. Very excited to see you today. And this is our goodbye. You know, before I put up the goodbye screen, I'm going to remind you again that Valerie Burton is here tomorrow, and she writes about a lot of things. This is just one of her books. Also, if you have takeaways from today, let me know. How are you going to eventually do heavy lifting? Whether you use the 3 additional techniques to motivate you, but eventually do heavy lifting, how are you going to do it? The best part of this session with you is always, hey, what are you taking away? How will you try this? Not with cello, but maybe as a manager in meetings, or maybe in your own exercise routine. How will you try something like this? So here is what some of you are saying as we end here today. Some of you are saying that you're going to try it. I don't know which one you're saying you're going to try, but you're saying I'm going to try it. And some of you are saying that you're going to see how it would work for you. Phenomenal. Go for it. Delighted to be with you. We will see you tomorrow. All the best.